All right. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to our blockchain cryptocurrency 101 with Shadman Hossain. I'm very excited to introduce him. He's actually a good friend of mine. We've actually came from Springfield together, and it's great to know that he is becoming an expert in the field of blockchain. Right now, he's a blockchain engineer for Leidos, a big government contractor. He actually started blockchain at Mason, a part of the Blockchain Education Network. And right now, he also has Sane Capital. And so, without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Shadman Hossain.
Thank you, Shatke. That was amazing and kind introductions. I just wanted to start off just telling a little bit about myself and my story. Maybe some of you guys here might be able to relate to me. I initially heard about Bitcoin back in 2011 when a friend sent me some. I don't remember how much. I'd probably be kicking myself in the ass if I figured out, but that computer was destroyed. So I lost my initial Bitcoins that I had. I heard about it again back in 2013, didn't pay much attention to it, and then came across it again. Third time is a charm for you to take something seriously. So I heard about it again during one of my classes, cybersecurity classes, about the dark web and how Bitcoin is essentially the currency that's used to make a lot of these purchases. So that led me down the rabbit hole of researching as well as taking it seriously. And then I discovered Ethereum and the idea of smart contracts later in 2016, and eventually invested in this market. Became very passionate about it, and that led me to start blockchain at Mason, which is a student-run and faculty-supported organization dedicated to bridge that gap that I noticed with blockchain and academia, because I was very passionate and interested in learning about this specific subject, but I was unable to find anything in school. So now we're partnered with over 50 universities and key industry players in blockchain. And I'm currently, after I graduated from George Mason in 2019 in applied information technology, I'm currently working as a blockchain engineer at Leidos, specifically building blockchain solutions for supply chain, healthcare, financial technology, and other intersections of emerging technologies such as IoT, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So that's enough about me. Today's agenda, I wanted to go over a very high overview of blockchain, what it is, why it's important, and how it's evolving the idea of our money and the internet, the way we do business, the current state of blockchain, and the digital transformation.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think you're just sharing your desktop and not the PowerPoint right now, because we see the man looking over the city right now, and not the PowerPoint.
Oh, well, that's embarrassing. Let's see. Let me retry this.
Yeah, at first I thought you were trying to show us your beautiful screen.
No. So let me take care of that. Okay, let me know if you can see it now.
Yeah, we can see it right now.
Okay, good. All right, so I'll start off from this is our agenda. I'll dive right into what I was talking about, starting off with giving a high level overview of what blockchain is, why it's important, and where it is right now, and where I see blockchain going in the future. So starting off, very high overview, we have to understand what computer networks are and how they work. So, computers are really good at sharing information. We share pictures, text, videos. We can connect wirelessly through, Wi-Fi. We can share the same thing like we are right now through this video to different people. And that's easy, but it's not so good for sharing assets or ownerships or money or copyright licenses. So people can send the same thing to different people. And this has been a computer science problem known as the double spend problem. So how can you make it so that you can't send something to someone and then send it to somebody else again, right? So if you have $1, if you send $1 to your friend, how how can you prevent using a computer to not send that dollar again, right? And currently today's solution has been centralized networks. So, a central server or a database that's keeping track of the data, keeping track of who owns what. So when you want to send a dollar to someone, this central server is keeping track of how much money you have, debiting it, and crediting the others. So this server makes sure there's no one to double spend, right? But the problem with that approach that we see in society today in this sort of architecture is that it leads to a central point of failure. So when you have a single server or database that is stored in a data center, it could be in New York, it could be in Ashburn in a data center, it can catch on fire. It can have, be susceptible to hackings. It can be uh, your assets that you have can be frozen. It's susceptible to corruption and fraud. There has been so many privacy breaches and data hacks that you hear about. Hundreds of millions of uh, customer information has been hacked and released from these centralized databases and servers. So with that in mind, can we do better, right? Can we replace these centralized authorities? How can we trust each other, on and agree with who owns what? And, can we replace these legal protections of our assets with technological protection? And the answer is yes. And that is presented by blockchain. Now, what is blockchain? It's pretty complex if you really get into the details, but overall, simply it's a block list of records, right, that is stored in blocks. And these blocks form a chain. So each block is pointed at the previous block, forming a chain of blocks. So when you modify a block, the chain is broken because it's cryptographically linked to the previous one. And this sort of architecture makes things transparent because there's a ledger that is transparent, and each computer, each node in the network has a copy of the whole blockchain of the records. And because it uses cryptography and digital signatures to provide identity and enforce read and write access, it makes this system a lot more secure than what we have today. And thirdly, this system is immutable, meaning that you cannot change records. And if you control 51% of the network, that's when you can make a change to the record, which is insanely difficult to do and requires huge amounts of computing power and money. So this sort of architecture is superior to the client server model that we have today. Going more about cryptography, blockchain specifically for our computer science students and majors here uses asymmetric cryptography, where we have a private key and a public key. And you can think about the private key as your password, but this is essentially, it's only available to you. You keep the secret. And your public key is kind of like your username, where you can share your public key, your username with people, and that's how the owner is identified. Specifically in the first blockchain implementation, Bitcoin, there are over 2 to the 160th possible addresses, public addresses you can create, which, as you can see by this number, it's practically impossible for anyone to overlap or randomly generate a same username that somebody else can have. So, every person in the world, it's the 7.4 billion people could have. I can't even read this number. It's insanely large. But this cryptography allows a secure password structure that, username, password, that can be replaced by public and private keys. And the consensus, it's a huge part of blockchain. So consensus is how do you come into an agreement in the network? And that's done through this concept called mining, which essentially works like this. Each node, each computer has a copy of the blockchain, and each computer, each node sends their transactions and to as many other nodes around them. And each mining round, the nodes compete, right? They're working very hard using their computing power to solve a puzzle. And whoever is the winner adds their block to the blockchain and receives a reward. And the next round begins. And this is how a blockchain network works. It's incentivizing, rewarding people that are keeping the network up and running through this concept called mining. So this mining is actually uses this concept called proof of work, which is how people present a proof that you've mined the block and you get rewarded for it. And it makes it very hard for someone or nodes to lie because you have to work, you have to use your computing power, and whoever has the highest computing power gets the reward. So this is essentially, how the consensus, how the network comes to an agreement. You have to put in work, you have to dedicate computing power to generate a block in a blockchain. And there are other ways of doing this. There's also concepts of called proof of stake, proof of elapsed time. So different people have started experimenting with different ways of coming into consensus in a blockchain network. So the proofs, what do they achieve? They protect the blockchain against bad actors. So someone that wants to go back and rewrite history by modifying one of the blocks, you would have to remine every block that came after the transaction. So it makes this very hard for somebody to attack the blockchain because you would need to have 51% of the entire network's processing power. So these bad blocks, they just end up, if you try to propose something, it wouldn't get added because you are trying to change history and you would need a lot of power to do that. So why is blockchain important? That's all the technical details, but the reason it's important is because of these 7 high-level ideas, starting off with data integrity, distributed power, value as incentive, security, privacy, rights preserved, and inclusion. So jumping right into the number one right here, data integrity. So what is the problem? The data integrity problem is that without a central source of truth, what can you trust? The solution to that problem is a peer-to-peer network that's very expensive to add and change data to. And number 2, that network enables distributed power. So no one single person or organization has control over the whole network. And this distributed model takes middlemen away, takes power away from central authorities such as banks, such as third parties that you would have to rely on for that source of truth, right? But this sort of network, this sort of model, a blockchain-based model, allows the users, the participants in the network, to maintain the network, and to essentially the idea of decentralization emerges from this sort of model. And the third item is the idea of aligned incentive. So people are driven by different incentives. Some people want to get fame. Some people want to earn a lot of money. This sort of blockchain-based system, you can reward and incentivize people for maintaining the network. So everybody in that network has a aligned incentive to make sure that network is working properly. So specifically with the network like Bitcoin blockchain, you would want to ensure that network does not get compromised, and you are going to be rewarded for mining, for giving your computing power to mine Bitcoin. So this is how it aligns the incentives of the people as a whole. And this security is a huge aspect of blockchain. And this is the reason why a lot of governments, enterprises, and companies are looking into blockchain for the security benefits it has. So PKI stands for Public Key Infrastructure. It's essentially the certificate authority behind every web page we see. And the problem with today is that these PKI systems can be hacked, you can have fraud, you can have identity theft because we use username and passwords, right? These are easily crackable through password crackers. Just with given enough time, somebody can get into your accounts. The solution is the usage of public and private key pairs that blockchain enforces. Instead of these simple username and passwords, gives you a higher level of security that is beneficial across the board to everyone, and we, us as a society. That leads to my next point of privacy. So this idea of, companies completely owning our data. So, Facebook, Google, they know a lot more about us than we know about ourselves. And, with GDPR laws, eventually this will need to shift, where the people need to get in control of their data. They need to be in complete control of their data. And blockchain enables you to do that. So by eliminating the need to trust others, you eliminate the need to know the true identities of people that you're interacting with. So with the blockchain wallet, for example, you have a pseudo anonymous wallet address which you can share with people, but that doesn't exactly identify who you are. It's just essentially a random string of numbers and letters, and only people you deal with will know that that's who you are. And lastly, preserving rights. Well, there's one more, but preserving rights, this is a pretty important and a huge aspect of blockchain. The problem is that companies, even countries, governments, they can change their rules, their services, and how they use your data, right? And the solution to this sort of problem is that you can enforce these rights in code. These new platforms enabling you to write smart contracts let you codify a lot of your terms, services, and what you want to happen, enabling automation. And your rights and what you can do can be codified, and that's where we are moving, as a society forward. And blockchain enables this type of enablement of smart contracts. And lastly, the idea of inclusion. The problem is that half the world does not own a bank account. And a lot of the times, even in order to make a bank account, you need to have a good credit score. You need to meet certain age requirements. And there's a lot more that goes into creating a bank account or having access to financial services. Uh, but with the blockchain account, you don't need to have a bank account or credit score or age requirement. Your younger siblings that are 10 years old can open up a Bitcoin wallet or Ethereum wallet or any type of blockchain wallet and start doing transactions. And imagine a time when they're turned 16 or 18 and they make their own bank account. Imagine the bank teller asking them, hey, you need to provide me all these details, right? And they've been born into an era where you don't need permission to, transact or buy something online. So that's the power of blockchain and those 7 things that it enables. So now let's focus on cryptocurrency and how blockchain is enabling the evolution of money and this value transfer that we're seeing. So in order to understand, let's quickly look at the history of money. We started off as a barter system, trading goods that we had with somebody that had something that we didn't have. And we evolved from that to cowrie shells, to minted coins, to banknotes in the 1700s, and then eventually plastic money in the 1950s. We use debit and credit cards, to purchase things. And this is something that we still use today, right? And keep in mind, it takes hundreds of years, sometimes, decades to evolve from one to the next, right? And in 2009, we were introduced to Bitcoin and digital currencies and a blockchain-based money system. And one key thing to keep in mind is before Bitcoin, everything we've seen was based on this idea of, based on the Keynesian school of economic thought. And Bitcoin is the first experiment where we are understanding how a Austrian economic system will look like. So just to keep in mind, there's 2 economic schools of thought, and we are watching an experiment play out in front of our, in front of our eyes on which economic system is better. And inherently, one's not good or bad; it's just different. And we as a society will need to decide which one is better for us. Now, going on to the next point is blockchain, Bitcoin is giving us a new store of value, this new alternative to what we have, right? And on the left, you see this image, this chart of the rise and the fall of the U.S. dollar, and this is over the last 100 years or so, since the creation of the Federal Reserve, our U.S. dollar has been devalued immensely, especially now during these times of crisis. If some of you guys follow what's happening with the Federal Reserve and the amount of money they're printing out for economic stimulus, it's going to further devalue our money, and it's already happening. As you see on the bottom, as it's happening, Bitcoin emerged out of the 2009 financial crisis, starting from zero, and now we're sitting at, as of today, $9,000 per coin. I'm not saying this is a good investment or you should go and buy Bitcoin, but rather, look at this as a hedge against these financial systems that are in front of you. And throughout history, there's empires they rise and fall, and those that protect themselves and have a hedge are the winners. And just to keep that perspective in mind, we have a alternate option now. You don't have to always have all your money, all your wealth saved in the US dollar. There are these other alternative stores of value, such as gold, Bitcoin, and a bunch of other cryptocurrencies that operate in a different financial realm, a different school of thought. And just another key point here in this slide is the fact that Bitcoin shares a lot of similarities with gold. And in this space, there's a narrative of Bitcoin being the digital gold. And that's because they share a lot of characteristics, including the fact that there's a finite amount of both Bitcoin, and there's only 21 million gold. And both are also very expensive to generate. One's electricity with computing power, the other is digging gold out of the ground through mining as well. It's a sort of a play. Mining gold and mining Bitcoin is essentially the same idea. You can buy gold at an exchange, a jewelry store. You can also buy Bitcoin at a Bitcoin exchange like Coinbase. So going on right now, because these companies, banks, enterprises, governments are understanding this potential of money being disrupted, and this presents not only a threat to the world, but to themselves as a company, as an institution. And that's why you will see a lot of names you recognize, from Bank of America, Wells Fargo, to even government technology companies such as Accenture, IBM, that are heavily involved in investing hundreds of billions of dollars into this technology. Because if you can't beat something, you should join them. And innovation, is what keeps the world going. And I'm happy to see these companies, including JP Morgan here, who likes to go on blockchain and Bitcoin, but secretly have been investing since 2017. So it's good to see that the world is catching on, and financially speaking, a lot of money is going into this space. And so this leads me to my point of looking at where we are. What is the current state of blockchain right now? So this report by Gartner as of 2019, as of July, so about a year ago, giving us where we are and different technologies coming into the intersection point of blockchain, starting off with some of the things that I'm personally focused on, such as supply chain and logistics, which Gartner is saying we're still 5 to 10 years away. Also, same thing with healthcare, blockchain in retail, oil and gas. We have stable coins, blockchain and IoT, blockchain insurance, education, in government. So you see a lot of different industries are being disrupted, as well as just in the experimentation phase of blockchain. And the ones that are in very light blue, we're 2 to 5 years away. So we're already living in the disruption of those. So what are those specifically? Starting off with up top, smart contracts, loyalty points, ICOs, digital assets, custody services. So some of the things that are very native to financial services are what is being disrupted at first. And keeping in mind technology, it has a cycle where it takes years to adopt. Even the internet, it's taken decades to get to where we are today. Same thing with blockchain. It will take this that same route. In the next 5-10 years, we'll see other industries being disrupted and actually being adopted, but we are years out from some of those ideas actually being implemented in real life. So that leads me to the ecosystem today. It feels a lot like 1990s. If I was alive, if some of us joining us here today, if you were young enough or old enough to remember the explosion of the internet, right? We had PayPal, Amazon, Microsoft being created. And that's what a lot of people tell me this blockchain space feels like, because it has the potential to disrupt industries, but also create an industry of its own. And we see financial services, applications, exchanges, payment services, wallets. So a whole new industry being born in and out of itself that resembles the dot-com era. And this leads me to the point of the digital transformation that blockchain enables. Right now, we're seeing this disruption happening in this concept of decentralized finance. Things that does not require a middleman, a bank or a lender. You don't need good credit score. You can come in, open up a wallet. All you would need is a internet device, and that's all you need. And that is the area right now where I'm seeing the most amount of disruption and experimentation. I personally use some of these decentralized finance products, for example, to get more out of my savings. So keeping my money in stable coins and generating 5 to 6% interest in a blockchain-based wallet. The other areas of digital transformation that's happening is on an enterprise level, where companies such as Walmart, IBM, and the company that I work for at Leidos is focused on supply chain and logistics use cases, as well as healthcare. And I do a lot of research in the government space as well. And a couple of departments stood out to me that are implementing and experimenting with blockchain is the U.S. Navy building a secure messaging system. Same thing with the Air Force, using it for supply chain, and other countries and their governments, such as China, launching the China Blockchain Network Service, which is a big deal because I'm personally concerned about being an American citizen falling behind in this race. To me, it feels like a race, and China is winning. Not only blockchain, but a lot of other things included. So to me, it's a matter of national security. Educating the American public about what is really going on and this revolutionary technology. And I don't want us to be behind. So the other interesting ones that stand out to me are energy grids and sharing. So if you had your own solar panels where you're storing energy, imagine being able to sell that to your neighbor for a lot cheaper instead of through the blockchain. So some of these projects like Power Ledger, Sun Contract enables you to do that. The second biggest one also I've noticed is real estate. So enabling you to buy a fraction of a house and get monthly income through that. There are platforms like Realty and Harbor that enables you to buy $100 or $200 worth of a fraction of a house, which is tokenized on the blockchain. So you can buy a portion and get passive income through that. And then digital identities and decentralized identities like civic and sovereign in law and voting and many other sectors. Also, gaming is a huge one, gaming, gambling, and several others that blockchain is disrupting. And this leads me to my last point. So tying this all together is the fact that blockchain is anti-disciplinary, meaning that it combines elements from economics, from math, from computer science, and philosophy. In computer science, you learn about cryptography and different mining algorithms. It has a lot of math with probability and elliptic curve cryptography that goes in it. And from an economic perspective, right, there's thoughts about monetary policy, the inflation rate, as well as game theory at play here in these algorithms. And then law, what are the regulations in the foreign policy, and how does a blockchain-based system affect that? And then you also have the philosophical aspects of the cypherpunk movement that gave birth to blockchain and Bitcoin and this whole movement, coming from privacy and freedom. So everyone can be part of this conversation. It's not just computer science and nerds. This is a conversation that we as a society need to have and be educated about, because this will be disrupting our lives and society as we know it in the foreseeable future. And this is just the beginning. And that's all. And, I really appreciate ShotK for giving me this opportunity, as well as everyone at Minority Programmers Association. I hope we learned a thing or two. And I wanted to also point out, blockchain right now is the #1 hard skill, according to LinkedIn, right above cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and more. So if you want to learn more about blockchain from not only an investment thesis and how you can get involved in investing in this space, but also if you want to be if you're seeking a career in blockchain and want to learn how to program and develop your own blockchain-based applications, I'm offering courses and figuring out what the demand is for students, and figuring out a timing that works to hold live courses over Zoom. To further educate my community and the American people. And you can also sign up for Blockchain Education Network. They have also a lot of free, great content there as well. And, follow me on Twitter. That's where I stay active. You can shoot me an email. Also sign up for my weekly newsletter that I share my ideas on. And I'll give the floor back to Shot K. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for presenting. That was the most comprehensive and easy to explain blockchain and cryptocurrency presentation I've ever seen. And that, if anyone doesn't have any questions right now, I actually have a lot of questions. So you kind of alluded to like the adoption of money, and that it takes a couple hundred years, and it's been about 60 years since the last adoption from credit cards to Bitcoin. Do you see Bitcoin being that the currency, or do you see it as this just a marker into transitioning into overall cryptocurrency? And if that's the case, what do you think is the next Bitcoin, or is Bitcoin itself here to stay?
That is a great question. And take my words with a grain of salt. I'm not a financial advisor, but being in this space, right? And what I can tell you is Bitcoin is the first, right? The first of its kind. And usually there's this notion of the first mover advantage, right? The person that comes up with an idea first usually has the biggest market share. And that's what we have seen so far, right? It came out 2009, it's 2020 now. So a little over the last 10 years, Bitcoin right now dominates the market. So I'll show you this website that I spend a lot of time on. This is almost like the Bloomberg terminal for blockchain and cryptocurrencies. The #1, the Bitcoin, it's the king. That's what this industry recognizes Bitcoin as. And if Bitcoin falls, everything else, all the other alternative currencies, there are hundreds and hundreds of them. New projects focused on different industries, different solutions, but Bitcoin is king with $168 billion market cap as of today, sitting at $9,000 per coin. And then the next best we have is Ethereum at $25 billion. So, it has a huge jump start ahead of these different projects. I mean, Ethereum came out in 2015. So it's still a baby compared to Bitcoin, right? And to think that Bitcoin is going to be the only thing that exists and nothing else, I think is naive. But also to say that there will be another Bitcoin that takes over Bitcoin, I would say is also naive, because Bitcoin, the narrative is it's a digital gold, right? And no other cryptocurrency has been able to replicate the game theory as well as the economic incentives lined up, along with the monetary policy of only having 21 million as the max supply. And we're already at 18 million that's circulating today. So over the next several hundred years, there's only 3 million Bitcoin that will ever be created. So in my opinion, I don't know any other cryptocurrency that has economic models like this that is so scarce. Number one, 21 million Bitcoin that can never exist. Just think about the number of people on Earth, over 8 billion and whatnot. So even if everybody wanted to have one whole Bitcoin, you couldn't. Even if all the millionaires in the world wanted to have one, you couldn't. So that's why I personally think that better technology exists than Bitcoin, which is like Ethereum. This enables you to actually not only transfer value between each other, but allows you to create a whole uh, case of decentralized applications. This whole idea of creating unstoppable applications that you cannot censor, you cannot stop, that will run with a 99.999% guarantee. Uh, this specific platform currency, uh, whatever you want to define Ethereum as, it's hard to define because ETH it's seen as almost a digital oil if Bitcoin is your digital gold. And every transaction requires Ethereum or gas to execute. So, to answer your question in a short version, to be honest, I can't confidently tell you Bitcoin will always stay because there's better technology there. But I will still continue to hedge myself against the monetary policy of the US dollar and other, fiat currencies with Bitcoin. And I think in the long term, it's here to stay. If there's one currency that I'm willing to bet will stick around out of all these other currencies right now, I would say it's Bitcoin.
Hey, this is Jack. I had a question regarding uh, supercomputers. I read an article recently that Honeywell has a supercomputer with like a bunch of qubits. I don't know the exact number. And the article specifically mentioned how this could be a threat for Bitcoin in the future, breaking uh, those algorithms down and potentially rewriting the blockchain. Um,
Yep,
what would you
that's
say to
a
those concerns?
yep, that's a great question. That is actually one of my concerns as well. It's I think supercomputers or even quantum computing poses a threat to blockchains, but I mean, forget blockchains. That's a threat to every encryption algorithm we have. That's a threat to your bank account. That's a threat to your username, password of every social media account you use, right? So that is a threat to everything. That's a threat to the fundamental encryption we use today, and that's a threat to governments. To even the NSA is investing a lot to figure out algorithms that uh, cannot be cracked by supercomputers or quantum computers. And the good news is there are projects out there and people out there that is trying to make Bitcoin quantum proof, as well as other projects. I believe there's one called Quantum Ledger, Quantum Resistant Ledger (QRL). This specific project, I personally I'm not invested in it. I don't care about it, but just because you asked me, is focused on solving exactly what you just asked. Uh, this project is geared to make sure this specific ledger, this blockchain, is quantum resistant to future attacks.
Cool. Thank you.
Kind of while you're on CoinMarketCap, you mentioned the differences in all these cryptocurrencies that utilize different technologies. How do you what's kind of the process for understanding a coin and what it does? Can you kind of go over what like a white paper is and like that general gist, and what as a cryptocurrency investor, how do you what kind of leads you to invest in a particular coin?
That's a good question. I think that's also a loaded question, but just in general, in terms of just discovering different, coins or currencies, I spend a lot of time in this specific site. Spend also a lot of time on Twitter, finding what people are talking about, what exciting projects are disrupting different fields. But if you are specifically using this website, CoinMarketCap, for research, you can come in here, and this is a great analytical tool for you to learn and understand about different cryptocurrencies and projects. So just to pick one, I'll go with Binance Coin right here. It's an exchange that has a coin called BNB. But off the bat, if you're just if you're looking from an investment perspective, you want to look at the market cap, figure out how much this project is currently worth. Right now, it's over 2 billion. How much volume is going through, and then the other is the total supply and the circuiting supply of this exact coin or currency you're looking at. So, like for example, Bitcoin that we mentioned, the reason why one coin is worth so much is because there is such little supply out there for you to buy. So out of 21 million, there's only 18 million out there, and currently, the whole market cap combined is at this rate. So you'd want to look at these metrics for any given cryptocurrency that you're looking at, or a project you're looking at. You don't want to buy something that, for example, let's look at IOTA. This specific project is focused on IoT, so machine-to-machine communication without transaction fees. And you can see the max supply of IOTA is insane. It's a lot. It's over 2 billion trillion. The market cap is 500 million, and you can look at this chart and see. I don't know if IOTA is ever coming back. Me personally, I know a lot about. So I know enough about IOTA to not invest, but you also want to look at the ranking, where it's ranked in the out of the whole list of currencies. But even from this site, let's pick something more interesting like Tezos. You can go to their website. You can look at their GitHub code and a couple others, but you can look at their social media and see if they have social media feeds. Usually, a good project will have a Twitter or some sort of account. But I usually go to the website and check out exactly what the project is about. I try to look at the team, who are the developers. Sometimes I like to go actually look at their GitHub. If they have a GitHub, I like to go into their Reddit page and see if they have an active Reddit community, if people are talking about Tezos. As you can see, they do have a pretty active community, posting different things and having discussions on it. And yeah, this is just a general workflow. You can go deeper and deeper in, and you can join their Discord, their Telegram, if you want to learn more about who's actually maintaining the communications, and ask any questions that you would have. But there is there are other websites and other tools, other things you can look at. Like I said, this is just a very quick overview of how you'd go on about doing your research. You can also look at on-chain metrics. They don't have this specifically for Tezos, but for example, for Ethereum, you would have metrics you can look at on-chain. On-chain meaning it's on the blockchain, it's public data, and you can get metrics out of that. So you can see actionable insights right now. It's bearish, the network growth, how many people are in the money, basically when they bought it versus right now. So most people are not doing so well. And you can see more signals. And if you want to get even deeper, let's say you're a trader from a day trading perspective, because a lot of the times it's profitable. Me personally, right, I'm not a day trader. I'm more of a long-term investment, buy low and hold until I see the potential, and sell high. So I don't like to do day trades, but if you can successfully do it, it is very profitable in the blockchain and in the crypto space. And another quick thing that I can tell you guys about is TradingView has a lot of these cryptocurrencies as well as stocks. It's a tool that I use to kind of read, if I want to buy a certain coin or sell based on technical analysis, or TA they call it, which TradingView automatically does. So specifically for Tezos, if you click on this more button, it kind of combines all the technical analysis and tells you whether it's a good time to buy or sell this specific crypto. So I think this would be a very helpful to, if you want to go buy a certain coin, you can look at monthly view, weekly view, day-to-day view, if it's a good idea for you to buy or not.
What website do you do your actual trading and investing on? Like, is there one like wallet that you use, and can you transfer between multiple wallets?
Yep, good question. I personally use Coinbase, Binance to buy these alternate cryptocurrencies that I would see as a good long-term hold, or has a lot of potential. I also have a hardware wallets, which is like a USB sort of token that maybe you guys might be aware of or might not. It's called Ledger Nano. So this is essentially a hardware wallet that you can store your crypto, so your Bitcoin, Ethereum, or some of these other coins, and with the highest security. So my long-term holds that I will be holding on to, for the next 5-10 years. I stored this away and keep it in a lock, right? So no hacker or nobody can ever get access to this. But in terms of software wallets, I do have wallets on my phone that I use to exchange. One recent one that I use that's very good is called Argent, Argent, Argent wallet. There's also Coinbase's wallet as well. Another one is the Trust wallet. So out of those three, I find myself going back and forth, using whichever one has the most amount of features. Right now, I'm using Argent wallet because they've integrated with a lot of different Ethereum based protocols that allow you to earn a stable income, allow you to lend your money out so you can get interest, allows you to play no loss lottery games. So there's different cool things integrated into that wallet. So that's why I'm kind of shilling it, because I'm a big fan. But it's called Argent. Let me see if I can bring it up. Yeah, there we go. It's this wallet that's my favorite right now. So if that answers your question, this wallet enables you to do a lot that this 101 kind of intro to blockchain I'm not covering, but the rabbit hole basically goes a lot deeper. You can spend days, weeks, and months learning about blockchain and starting to use these products to, start to experiment with it. I would never advise anybody to put, tons of money in and put all your money in and experiment with these products. But you have to keep in mind, these are brand new products. These are at the cutting edge of innovation of decentralized finance. And some of these products get hacked, right? There's been accounts of smart contracts and these projects being hacked and drained out of their money. So be careful with what you experiment with. But these are very exciting things that enable you to do things you wouldn't be able to do with your traditional financial tools, and earn high interest and buy and exchange without anyone's permission, without anybody stopping you. It's a wild west right now.
You mentioned permission and stuff, but like in these services like Coinbase, they require like ID and your SSN. And I read somewhere on, I don't know, was it Cointelegraph or CoinDesk, that they're starting to work with like government officials to like take away that you not being associated to that string and whatnot. So like, how do you stay anonymous on this, or how do you see like the privacy element of cryptocurrencies like keeping integrity?
So great question. So, you know, a lot of people don't realize that these public blockchains are very public. So it makes tracking individuals a lot easier, not harder. So a lot of people that has used Bitcoin in the past, you know, in the dark web, for purchases of any kind of thing, uh, you can be tracked pretty easily, right? And it is scary that that you know any government, any sort of government entity can have that sort of power to track you down and do it in an easy way. So one way to you know to preserve your privacy, one is to not use those platforms, right? You don't have to use Coinbase. You can use something else that does not use KYC or know your customer laws. I'm not recommending that per se, but the alternate options for you, one of them that stands out to me is another cryptocurrency that is designed specifically for privacy, called Monero XMR. And you know, if you use this, people might let's just say people. This is the currency that's essentially used prominently in the dark web today. And the reason is because this is a completely private cryptocurrency that conceals the users and the amounts that you're transacting in the ledger. So this currency at one point was, you know, over $300-400. And right now it's pretty dirt cheap. But if you're a privacy focused person, this is the number one privacy cryptocurrency that is completely untraceable, that doesn't require any KYC or, you know, any type of permission from anybody. But you know, you don't have to use Coinbase. You can use other platforms that doesn't take your information. In fact, you can buy it peer to peer, right? You can go to over the counter desks, trading desks. You can find somebody like a friend like me or somebody else that has crypto that's trying to sell, and you can directly buy from them. You know, you can give them cash, they can send you crypto. So there are ways of not using, you know, you have options. You don't have to, you know, it's not like Coinbase or one of these other platforms that, you know, require you to submit your information is the only option, right? You have plenty of other options. And this specific wallet that I showed you, Argent, or any of these Ethereum wallets or Bitcoin wallets, they don't do any KYC. There's no information they ask you. All they ask you is to open up a Ethereum wallet and save your private key. That's it.
I like the point that you made about going to like developing nations and actually getting kids hip to this. So would you another question that kind of arises from that is what is the practicality of actually using it as a currency in developing nations, and is there current examples where they're doing this effectively?
Yep, great question. So if you look at countries in Africa right now, they are actually adopting this at an insanely high rate than expected. There's countries in South America like Venezuela specifically, in times of hyperinflation, as you guys might be aware, that they were going through and are still going through today. Um, a lot of them, their lifeline was Bitcoin. Their lifeline was cryptocurrencies and these other alternative traditional, you know, alternatives to their traditional system, right? Their currency was, you know, essentially becoming worthless, and a lot of them were using their computing power to mine secretly, using the electricity, which is, you know, subsidized by the Venezuelan government, um, to mine Bitcoin. And they were buying groceries from this company that accepts Bitcoin and being airdropped down into, you know, into their country. So, you know, in real life, it has been it has been used. It has been used to not only save lives but be the lifeline in certain countries when the situation gets bad. When things get out of hand. Uh, that is exactly when cryptocurrencies and blockchain shine, right? So if you take this to countries that are suffering from, for example, war, refugees that don't have identities, that completely lose, access to prove who they are, right? Those type of people you can definitely help, and that's one of the narratives of blockchain and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, is that of banking the unbanked, right? These people they don't have a bank account, they barely have an ID to prove themselves. So how can you expect that to happen? And you can take a technology like this, you can take these wallets, you can take these open source code, and if you can get them to adopt it, if you can give them a Android phone or any type of phone that can connect to the internet, I mean, you're going to be changing their lives, right? But it's the step one is to get them a phone and internet and the infrastructure, right? And then everything else, I think you let society and you let life play out, and they, when the situation arises, like just like Venezuela and several other countries, like you will flock to this system because that's the only alternative you have.
So in terms of, you mentioned, I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but this is a very interesting topic. But you mentioned it being the number one hard skill, and a lot of us are computer science majors. How do you think from a technical perspective we can get into the space?
That's a great question. So being let's just put you guys in my shoes. I came on to this industry about 3 years ago, right? And when I initially invested in Ethereum, just a disclaimer, under like it was, I saw this rise from $10 in front of my own eyes to over 1,000. So just to give you a perspective, in the summer of 2016, as a young college student, I was just watching this thing rise, around $10, and then it exploded to over 300, like couple months later, and then to over 1,000 couple, month or two after that. Seeing that kind of got me hooked. It had me hooked to the point where I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't sleeping at night. I was going to sleep at 7 in the morning, and I would just up researching every single blockchain project on CoinMarketCap. I can probably tell you, like, I went as deep as knowing the top 300-400 coins, things that people wouldn't even have any idea about, right? And that took a level of passion, and that took a level of just raw desire to not only learn but make money out of it, right? And the realization was, okay, I can make money by buying and selling these, buy low and selling high, or I can become an expert and become a pioneer in this field that is, being born right in front of my own eyes. And I decided at that moment is that I will become somebody that knows this industry in and out, as well as pushes this industry forward. And that's when I started digging into Ethereum, digging into smart contracts, digging into, watching a ton of YouTube videos, whatever resources I had in front of me, I read, I looked into it. And, that's how it started. Started off with just learning about it, watching YouTube videos. And then after that came in to learning about smart contracts and actually going to these events in DC that they were holding workshops on how to create your own token and create your own ICO, initial coin offering, things like that. And I started learning on how to basically code in Solidity, this whole new programming language that looks like JavaScript. And I actually had a presentation a couple of weeks back on this specific topic of the specific topic of tokens and creating tokens, where I went through the actual code to write Solidity code and deploy this onto the Ethereum blockchain, and how to create your own cryptocurrency. And this goes a little bit deeper if we held another longer session that we can go into on how to exactly do this. But you'll find a ton of free tutorials online on how to deploy a ERC20 token on Ethereum blockchain and then deploy it, and then you can send it between you and other people or anybody around the world. And that's the idea of creating programmable money. And that's how I started just experimenting with it, looking at things online that I found, but there was no straightforward path, right? And that's the reason why I started Blockchain and Mason, was because there was no resources for me to actually learn. I had to dig things from 10 different places and put them together. And eventually came courses where I was able to buy things on Udemy, and reading through consensus and Ethereum's actual documentation helped. And there's another big one. If you guys have GitHub, sure most of you guys do. The Ethereum book, it's called Mastering Ethereum. It's available on GitHub for free. So if you want to learn Ethereum specifically and smart contracts, this is a great book to start, by Andreas Antonopoulos, who's very well known for his work with Bitcoin, but also he wrote this book focused specifically on Ethereum and smart contracts. So I went through this book. It's all free. It's just annoying because it's divided up into like a weird format, but it takes you through different, the whole story of Ethereum, what it is, how it works, and then eventually it goes into the technical details and the implementations of building an actual decentralized application on Ethereum. So I hope that helps. But the technical side of it, I'm not going to lie, it is very tech heavy, and you can go pretty deep into the whole idea of decentralization and the development of decentralized apps. But it's pretty exciting to me because it feels like the start of a new layer for the internet. It feels like if we're right now, if we as a society are in Web 2.0, this whole industry is trying to create Web 3.0, where the payment systems, the interactions, everything is different. It's changed the way we interact, right? A Web 3.0 application doesn't require you to type in your username and your password. It already knows that you're using this wallet and you can interact with it, and you're incentivized to do certain things. So I hope that answers your question. But the technical side, I'm willing to hold. People are interested. I'm actually willing to educate people. I'm actually working on building a course to solve, answer this exact question and help people get into a blockchain career like I have. And if that is what they want, it is pretty in demand, and it's very lucrative right now. If you just look at the salaries of what a blockchain engineer makes, let's just do a quick Google search. But yeah, you can do this on your free time, but it is pretty up there in terms of artificial intelligence and other types of careers. As you see, yeah, a good experienced blockchain engineer is supposed to be making somewhere around this, but me out of college or anybody out of college, I wouldn't expect to be making this much. But blockchain is very in demand from not only enterprises, governments, but you'll be in demand for a long time coming, because this is just the beginning of a small component of this whole digital transformation movement we're going through as a society. So
that's awesome. Like, I definitely go back to your slide and show like the future resources and your future courses, and I'm very interested in all of that. Also, explain your browser real quick, because something you mentioned reminded me of your browser.
Oh yes, I did. So right now I'm using this browser called Brave browser. I don't know if it's a fork off of Chrome, but it's made by the users of Firefox. So one of the cool things about Brave, what it does is it basically rewards me for browsing things I automatically do. But if I enable ads, so sometimes I get pop-up ads, just like notifications that come in from right here, I get rewarded in BAT tokens, BAT, basic attention tokens, because think about it this way. These advertisers are taking your attention away, right? But they're not giving you anything in return. So the idea of this browser is you get to get rewarded for your, viewing ads, and then you can give these tokens. Right now this 37 BAT is worth almost $10, 10 US dollars. You can give this to your favorite, favorite content creators. You can pay this to your favorite Twitter, Twitter followers, or your favorite YouTube creator. So you can give the BAT tokens to people you like, and websites you visit the most. So that's just a neat product of blockchain in and of itself, that most people are not aware of. And another cool part is that Brave browser strips away all the unnecessary tracking that is enabled in your browser whenever you browse, in Chrome or whatnot. It strips away and saves you time and speeds up your browsing experience. So I recommend you guys check it out. It's free. I use it on my phone as well. You know, this is what you would see if you didn't customize it like I did. But how many ads and trackers have been blocked, how many HTTPS upgrades, and how much time you've saved because you're using Brave compared to Chrome or something else. But yeah, this is one of just an example of a blockchain based browser that's using a token to reward not only the person browsing using the browser, but content creators as well that that you can just tip. So if I go on Twitter, there's like a tip button next to every tweet where I can tip somebody from my Brave from my BAT tokens. So I hope that kind of answers one of the questions. But like I said, the rabbit hole and the amount of different products you can experiment with runs pretty deep.
Yeah, and Brave also has Tor. That's a huge one too. It's easier to download than Tor, and you can like transfer your bookmarks and easily transition from Chrome to that. So that's an easy way to start using cryptocurrencies immediately and whatnot, and transitioning to that. So that's something I think I recommend everyone to do. Like right now, if they're on Chrome or if they use Firefox, just import all your bookmarks, switch to Brave. You got Tor, Alt Shift N. Like it's that
for sure. Hey, what's $10 a month? Just you getting what you'd get. What you would do just by browsing. You're getting rewarded. So you have nothing to lose and everything to gain, essentially.
And just before, I know I'm taking a lot of your time, but I like, just because you mentioned stuff that's so relevant to today, like right now, post-COVID, you mentioned the Feds printing trillions of dollars, and then this kind of being a peg against that. Like, how do you see this kind of fixing a bunch of issues, whether it be like police accountability or whether it be anything going off with the social tensions arising in the country?
Yep, that's also a great question. I mean, a lot of the problems that we have today, you can attribute to race, you can attribute it to a lot of things, but I personally think it boils down to the economic differences, right? And it's a class issue. A lot to me, a huge majority of it is a class, and as well as the economic problems that we as a society are going through. And blockchain can not only serve as a hedge, like I mentioned in this specific slide, where you as a citizen of this world, you've never had an alternative option to hedge yourself against the actions of your government or your politicians. But now you do have a choice or a voice in hedging yourself, and opt out or opt into a different system that is better suited for your needs and better suited and better aligned for your for you. That's number one. And number two, with the police and that sort of realm, blockchain, some people have been throwing this idea about using blockchain as a accountable trust layer, to essentially show the public the police records of the complaints that are currently private in their private databases. So I personally have been exploring this idea myself as well, just independently. How would a blockchain system that shares data that's private right now, where the police complaints, uh, blockchain is a perfect technology that could play as that trust component, right? When we as a public, when we look at a record, let's say from the police, how can we trust that that record hasn't been manipulated or hasn't been changed, right? So a blockchain system in and out of itself would enable us to see transparency, and hold people accountable like the police. But that idea can be a lot broader than that, right? It's not just the police, but think about our taxes. We pay taxes. Where does our tax money go? We don't know that. But if we had a open public ledger system that every American citizen can look at and trace and see exactly where their public donation money is going to, which program, which service. I mean, that technology exists today. Now, whether or not our politicians and from a regulatory perspective we implement it, and we want to make that happen, that's a separate topic. But as us, as students, as engineers, as as the public that can do something about it, right? We can voice our opinions and say, hey, look, a technology exists to solve these problems that exist at a societal level. Now the question is, are we educated enough to force that change upon the people that are in charge?
And so education is something we definitely want to get. Go back to that page. Like, we definitely want to learn more from you. At the corner of the screen, you see the Blockchain Education Network. Our club at JMU has officially joined that, and we have it's amongst the ranks of Blockchain at Mason, MIT Bitcoin Club, Harvard, etc. Like, there is a bunch of resources, and at the same time, Shadman alluded to developing more content in tokenization, trading, storing your wallet, tracking, logistics, philosophy, economics, real life applications. So I'm very excited to see. I'm very excited to see the course that you have. If you have time for another question, Kareem just asked one. He's trying to pocket check you.
Yeah, guys, if you guys have any more questions, you can reach out to me on Twitter. You can send me an email. Also, if anybody is interested in actually, seeking a career in blockchain, or maybe you want to get certified in blockchain, you can reach out to me, DM me. I do have certain courses available through Mason that I wanted to share before I drop off. These were enrichment courses that were added by MGTA, which is part of GMU, as adult education courses. So specifically, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency fundamentals, things that I went over today, but this specific class would go a lot deeper and help you prepare to pass a certified Bitcoin professional exam. And then the next one is a developer course where you learn how to build blockchain applications. So full stack blockchain, this is for people that want to become full stack blockchain developers. The first class would be a prereq to that. And then lastly, this is blockchain for business, specifically focused on Hyperledger. So if you're coming from more from a business mindset, this is both for technical and non-technical people. So just to end off on that note, if you're interested in actually pursuing and learning more, feel free to reach out. I'm available. This is one of my passion, and I'm glad to essentially help other people get move this space forward.
And thank you so much, Shadman, for coming out. You were one of the most comprehensive and most passionate speakers we've had, and you answered all of our questions beautifully. Again, like, that's his information right there. I strongly encourage, like, especially as minorities, the implications it can have in the developing world and in our own lives. We should definitely look into this space. And again, thank you so much. This video is also going to be made public a little bit later. And so you can look at that. And again, just check out his material, check out these courses, you know. And again, thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you for having me, guys. Take care.